I orchestrated my mother-in-law's dream party, hoping it would finally earn me a place in her family. Instead, she publicly humiliated me, unaware that her entire kingdom had been paid for by the nobody she so vehemently despised. The clinking of champagne glasses was supposed to be a happy sound. Tonight, it sounded like a countdown timer, each chime bringing me closer to an explosion I could feel brewing just beneath the surface. For 6 months, my mother-in-law, Eleanor's 60th jubilee, had been my second full-time job. I wasn't asked to plan it, I was expected to. I found the perfect banquet hall with tasteful gold accents, negotiated with the caterer to include her favorite obscure seafood dish, designed the invitations myself, and spent weeks compiling a heartwarming photo slideshow of her life. My husband, Mark, was endlessly grateful, planting kisses on my cheek and telling me his mom would be blown away. He was a good man, but he had a blind spot the size of a planet when it came to his mother. He never saw the little cuts, the passive-aggressive jabs Eleanor threw my way. When I showed her the invitation design, she'd smiled thinly and said, "The font is a little common, don't you think? But it's fine. It's not like my friends are graphic designers." When I secured the venue, she'd remarked, "Oh, this place. My friend Carol had her daughter's wedding here. It was sweet, if a bit small." Every choice I made was met with a backhanded compliment, a subtle undermining that left me feeling small and incompetent. Yet I persevered. I told myself this grand gesture, this perfectly executed party, would finally be the thing that earned me a real place in the family. Not just as Mark's wife, but as a daughter. The night was, by all accounts, a smashing success. The room was buzzing with laughter and conversation. Eleanor was holding court at the head table, resplendent in a sequined dress, soaking in the adoration like a queen. I watched from my seat next to Mark, a quiet sense of pride swelling in my chest. The flowers were perfect. The food was divine. The slideshow had made everyone cry, even Eleanor, who dabbed at her eyes with a delicate handkerchief. I had done it. I had pulled it off. Then came the toasts. Her brother went first, then her best friend from college. Finally, it was Mark's turn. He stood up, glass in hand, looking handsome in his suit. He spoke eloquently about his wonderful mother, sharing a few funny childhood anecdotes. The guests laughed and awed in all the right places. I felt my heart swell with love for him. He was finishing up his speech when he turned, his eyes finding mine across the table. "And I have to give the biggest thank you to my amazing wife, Sarah," he said, his voice ringing with sincerity. "Honestly, none of us would be here tonight in this beautiful room if it weren't for her. She put all of this together, every single detail, out of her love for my mom. Mom, she did this all for you." A wave of warmth washed over me as the room erupted in applause. People were turning to smile at me, some even raising their glasses. This was it. This was the moment of acknowledgement I had craved for 5 long years. My cheeks flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and pure joy. I started to stand up, just to give a small, grateful wave. But before I was even fully on my feet, Eleanor's voice, sharp and cold as ice, cut through the applause like a knife. "Mark, that's enough," she snapped. The smile was gone from her face, replaced by a mask of pure fury. The room began to quiet, the applause faltering as people sensed the sudden shift in atmosphere. Her eyes, 2 chips of granite, locked onto mine. She pointed a perfectly manicured ruby-red nail directly at me. "And you," she spat, her voice low but carrying to every corner of the now silent room. "Sit down, sit and shut up. You're nobody here." The silence in the room was a physical thing. It pressed in on my ears, heavy and suffocating, 100 pairs of eyes were fixed on me, not with applause anymore, but with a horrifying mix of pity and morbid curiosity. My body felt like it was moving in slow motion as I sank back into my chair, the plush velvet suddenly feeling like a bed of nails. The heat rushed to my face, a burning, agonizing blush that I knew everyone could see. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. Mark stood frozen for a second, his mouth slightly agape. "Mom, what?" he stammered, looking from her enraged face to my shattered one. "What are you talking about, Sarah?" "I'm talking about this elaborate performance." Eleanor's voice was venomous, her accusation flung across the table like a poisoned dart. "This is my jubilee. Mine. It's not an opportunity for her to play the martyr and show everyone how capable and wonderful she is. Did you see them? All of them, clapping for her. At my party." I stared at my plate, at the perfectly seared scallop I had painstakingly chosen after 3 different tastings. The sight of it made me want to be sick. The logic was so twisted, so narcissistic, that I couldn't even begin to process it. She wasn't angry at a flaw, she was angry at my success. The perfect party I had thrown for her was, in her mind, an attack, a deliberate attempt to steal her spotlight. "Mom, please, you've had too much champagne," Mark pleaded, his voice weak. He was trying to de-escalate, to smooth things over. He wasn't defending me, he was managing her. "Don't you dare blame the champagne," she shrieked, slamming her palm on the table. A few glasses rattled precariously. "For 5 years she has been trying to take my son, trying to take my place in this family. This whole night is just the final insult, a monument to her own ego disguised as a gift to me." That was it. The tiny flickering ember of hope I'd held on to for years, that one day she would see me, accept me, was instantly extinguished. In its place, a cold, hard anger began to form in the pit of my stomach. I slowly lifted my head and looked at my husband. He stood there, paralyzed, a deer in the headlights of his mother's rage, utterly useless, and I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that he would always choose the path of least resistance. He would always choose to placate her. Without a single word, I gathered my small clutch from the table. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping against the floor, a sound that seemed to echo in the cavernous silence. I stood up, my spine ramrod straight. "Sarah, wait," Mark whispered, finally moving, reaching a hand out for my arm. I flinched away from his touch as if I'd been burned. I refused to look at Eleanor. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing the tears that were now threatening to spill. I fixed my gaze on the ornate doors at the far end of the room, and I started walking. The click of my heels on the polished marble floor was the only sound. It was a walk of shame, past tables of people who either pitied me or were judging me, past the beautiful ice sculpture that would soon melt into nothing, past the slideshow screen that was now frozen on a picture of Eleanor in her youth, smiling and carefree. I burst out into the grand hotel lobby, the sudden quiet a relief. I gasped for air, leaning against a cool marble pillar. The doors swung open behind me. It was Mark, his face pale and etched with panic. "Sarah, my God, I am so sorry. I don't know what got into her. She can be difficult when she drinks." "Don't," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Don't you dare make a single excuse for what she just did." "I'm not. This is a disaster. I'll go back in. I'll make her apologize to you in front of everyone." A short, brutal laugh escaped my lips. "You'll make her? Mark, you just stood there like a statue while she tore me to shreds. You were more worried about causing a scene than you were about me. What was I supposed to do? Start a screaming match at her own birthday party? He pleaded, his hands outstretched as if to ward off my anger. Yes, the word ripped from my throat. You were supposed to do something, anything, but you didn't. You left me completely alone. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice cracking. Please, let's just go home. This party, Sarah, this party cost a fortune. We can't just walk out. He stopped, realizing his mistake the second the words left his mouth. The cost. The one thing that could make this humiliation infinitely more profound. A strange, chilling smile found its way to my lips as I looked at him, really looked at him. We? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. You think we paid for this? Mark's face crumpled in confusion. What are you talking about? The money came from our joint savings. Check the account, Mark, I said, my voice now as cold and hard as the pillar at my back. Go online right now and check the balance, then ask to see the final, paid-in-full invoice from the venue manager. The smile vanished. That fortune you're so worried about? That was my inheritance. Every last cent my grandmother left me. I drained my own account because I wanted to give your mother the world. So go back in there. Go tell the queen that the nobody she just humiliated is the one who paid for her entire kingdom. Mark's jaw literally dropped. He fumbled for his phone, his fingers shaking as he tried to log into our banking app. The color drained from his face as he stared at the screen, the zero balance glaring back at him. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with a dawning horror that was, I have to admit, deeply satisfying to witness. Sarah? Why? Why wouldn't you tell me? Because it was supposed to be a gift, Mark, I said, my voice flat and devoid of the emotion that was churning inside me. A gift from both of us. A grand gesture from her loving son and daughter-in-law. I didn't want you to feel bad. I didn't want her to know and have yet another thing to hold over our heads. I just wanted, for once, for her to be happy with something I did, for her to see me. A strangled sound escaped his throat. He ran a hand through his hair, looking back towards the banquet hall as if the answers were in there. I need to fix this. There's nothing to fix, I stated, pulling my wrap tighter around my shoulders. I felt an odd sense of calm settle over me, the clarity that comes after a devastating storm. You can't fix this because you're a part of the problem. You've been enabling her behavior for years, asking me to be the bigger person, to let things slide, to just understand that it's just how she is. Well, I'm done understanding. I turned and walked away, not waiting for his reply. I didn't go to the valet. I just walked out into the cool night air and hailed the first cab I saw. The ride home was silent. I didn't cry. The tears had been burned away by the white-hot rage and the subsequent icy resolution. When I got to our apartment, I didn't hesitate. I went straight to the bedroom, pulled out my suitcases, and started packing. My hands were steady, my movements efficient. I was packing up 5 years of my life, 5 years of trying to fit into a space where I was never wanted. About an hour later, Mark came home. He found me in the living room, 2 suitcases and 3 boxes neatly arranged by the door. He looked like he'd aged a decade in a single evening. "She's destroyed," he said, his voice hollow. "I told her. I showed her the bank statement, the venue invoice. I told her what you did, what you spent. She just crumpled. My uncle had to take her home." "Good," I said, not looking at him. I was focused on taping up the last box. "She called you," he continued, holding out his phone. "About 20 times. She's been texting nonstop. Apologies. begging you to come back, to talk to her." I finally looked at him. "And what do you want, Mark?" "I want my wife back," he choked out, tears finally welling in his eyes. "I want us to go back to how things were this morning." "We can't," I said softly, standing up, "because this morning I was still under the illusion that you would choose me. When your mother drew a line in the sand tonight and told me I was a nobody, you just stood there and let me be on the other side of it all alone. You didn't defend me. You tried to manage her. And that's what you'll always do." I took a deep breath. Her apologies mean nothing, Mark. They aren't born from remorse for how she's treated me for 5 years. They're born from the shame of being exposed. She's not sorry she humiliated me. She's sorry that everyone now knows she was humiliated by a nobody she couldn't afford to be cruel to. He had no answer to that because he knew it was the truth. The power dynamic had shifted irrevocably, and Eleanor's desperate apologies were just an attempt to regain control. "I'm going to stay with my sister," I said, picking up my purse. "My lawyer will be in touch about all of this." I walked to the door, and for the first time, Mark didn't try to stop me. He just sank onto the couch, his head in his hands, a broken man in the middle of a life he had allowed his mother to shatter. As I closed the door behind me, I felt a profound sadness, but also an overwhelming sense of relief. The weight of trying to earn an unearnable love was finally lifted. The next few weeks were a blur of legal paperwork and tearful phone calls with my own family. I never spoke to Eleanor again. I blocked her number. Mark sent long, rambling emails, swinging between begging me to come back and blaming me for blowing up the family. I directed them all to my lawyer. I had spent my inheritance on a party, but it had bought me the most valuable thing in the world, my freedom. It was an expensive lesson, but I had learned it. I was not a nobody. I was somebody who deserved to be loved and respected, not just tolerated. And I would never again sit down and shut up for anyone.